It's great to meet you all, and I look forward to connecting with you. Please feel free to connect to me on LinkedIn in the future if you have other questions that we're not able to answer today. So let me just quickly jump on in. So today I'm going to talk about a six-point checklist for branding and packaging success in the US retail market. And Eric already mentioned that I have a ton of experience. I've received awards for products that have been launched in the frozen food category, in dried food, in tea, beverages, worked with big international brands and lots of US retailers. So I have a ton of experience launching products, so I know what it takes. And I've worked with a lot of international companies, so I know some of the unique challenges you are all facing. So let's talk about what those 6 key checklist things that you need to do to make sure that your branding and packaging is ready for the US retail market. The first thing you need to do is always have a big picture strategy, and it needs to be a time that you set aside to really understand what you're trying to do here. And when it comes to sales, I do consulting and help people to grow, and there's always 2 problems when it comes to growing your sales. The first one has to do with the science of sales. There is something called the law of large numbers, which is how we develop statistics. If you do something 1,000 times and you find a trend, then you can actually start making estimates. And that's because the more times that you do something, the more you get a certain outcome. And so if you want to increase your sales, the first thing you need to do is obviously get in front of as many US customers as possible and as many US retailers as possible. So the more people that you pitch your product to, the more sales are going to get. And that might seem very obvious, but it's very easy you need to actually schedule the amount of times you're going to spend putting your product in front of people. And the more people that you see, not only will you get more sales, but you'll get feedback about how to revise your product to make sure that it's really going to sell in the US market. And ECRM is an amazing asset to help you get in front of as many retail buyers as possible and develop real relationships with them. So I recommend ECRM like wholeheartedly. I don't work with them, but I do recommend them to help you get more sales. What I want to talk about though is the art of sales. So let's say you see 100 people, and every single time you see 100 people, you close 10 clients. That with one particular pitch or one packaging design, there is a way to get better sales with those 100 people. So maybe you close 90 out of 100, and that has to do with the art with which you do your pitch. The better your pitch, the more targeted it is to your audience, the higher the conversion rates that you will get. And packaging in our industry is our sales pitch. So your packaging needs to be on point. So the thing that you need to do to take away from this point is you need to get in front of as many customers as possible and make your pitch. And then you need to refine your pitch. You need to identify your target customer. You need to identify where and how they shop. And you need to design a pitch that's going to uniquely speak to them culturally. So when you're improving your artwork, if you want your art of your sales and the art of conversion, the amount of times that you're able to convert for every retailer that you get in front of, you need to be 100% clear on who your target customer is, how they shop, and you need to design a pitch that's going to speak to them. So your homework is to write out, where are you lacking currently? Do you need to get in front of more people, or do you need to improve your sales pitch to speak to the American audience if you want to grow your sales? And then write out what your goals are so that you can make sure you have an actual plan at the end of this presentation. The second thing you need to do is have a very good brand story that builds trust. In the US market, we get emotionally connected to the brands that we buy from. We don't like to buy things that are knockoffs, and that we do that sometimes, but the brands that have longevity, that have the highest net worth, that can charge the most for their products, we have emotional affinity to. And that is what a brand is. A brand is an identity that your customer puts to your product. So you need to develop a brand, and a brand is related to trust, and that has long-term net value for you as a brand owner. How do you do that? Number one, you need to tell a story of values. Number two, you need to be culturally relatable. And number three, you need to be category consistent, but also stand out. So how do you do this? To tell a story of values, this is your homework. You need to write out a romance story. So have 1 to 3 sentences that describes what your company is and why you make the products that you do. I need to believe that you as a company are intentionally creating things to serve me as the customer. Then you want to write out what your core values are. So that could be, that you make organic products, or that you are dedicated to unique flavors, that you're committed to bringing international flavors to the US market. Write out what your core values, and then select 3 to 5 call outs that you're going to use to really help define and summarize all of those things that will be on every single product that you have. For example, every product that we make is Japanese. Every product that we make is going to be kosher. These call outs are things that help a customer quickly identify who you are and have trust in your company. So those things, here's an example, case study of Kroger, which is a private label brand in the United States. And they are so committed to organic products and transparency. And you can see that's why their brand is called Simple Truth Organic. And they've made it super clear what their values are. And you consistently see call outs on the front of their packaging. They are always on the back making really clear claims about who they are. And the value of being so simple and so straightforward is that American customers are going to get a very clear understanding of who you are, and that will build trust. Another example is gluten-free with Aldi. This brand, Live G-Free, in America, this is a trend, a cultural trend, is that we have a lot of allergies to gluten and we don't trust gluten, so we're trying to remove it from a lot of our products. You may not have that same trend in your country, although it is a rising global trend. So Aldi decided to make a brand only committed to gluten-free products. And the advantage of it, again, is that a customer is going to quickly identify your core values and therefore have more trust. To be culturally relatable, you want to look at social media influencers, you want to research keyword trends in the US, and you want to shop US stores and start taking notes of the things that you're seeing selling in these locations. And you want to find a way to position your product to be relatable to that. And I want to give you a case study. So nori is dried seaweed, and it's very popular in Japan, obviously, for making sushi. And the American market, we love eating sushi, but at home, we don't typically buy and make our own sushi. So this product is awesome, very popular for people when they want to have a special night out or when they go to a restaurant, but the average consumer would not think of buying that because it's not culturally relevant. So if you had this brand, you can see on the left-hand side is the Japanese version, on the right is the American version of the same brand, specifically selling sushi to people who want to make sushi at home. But there's not as much volume as you might think. However, there's a huge trend for keto and healthy vegetable related snacks. And so some incredible brands have taken a key, noticed this trend and pivoted this product to be able to reach them. So these are snacks, and Americans are buying these like crazy. This becomes an everyday item that parents are putting in their snack packs for their kids. They're taking to work. People who are in diets are now eating this. And it's literally just the same product chopped in pieces and put into different packaging. How hard would that be for you as a brand owner to consider just changing the packaging? It's very, very simple. Now, it does take a lot of high level strategy, but I'm suggesting that there's a lot of advantages that you can have just by being culturally relevant with your brand. And this is where this goes even further, this concept of kelp jerky. It's the same product, just with a different name. So an American brand is considering how to sell this product as beef jerky, because Americans eat a lot of beef jerky. And also taking this Japanese seasoning, which is very common in Asia, and making it very accessible to the American palate by using American terms and putting it in a specific category on the grocery store helps you to get more sales. So you want to make sure you build a strategy that will make you culturally relevant. And those are some examples. Part C of their brand story that builds trust is you want to be consistent with your category, but you also want to stand out. And how does that work? You don't want to be too different that you look weird. These are examples of oils, car oils. You can see that the shape of every single car oil is consistent. And in America, if we saw this on a store shelf, I would know that this is a car oil without even reading the packaging. But here on the right-hand side, you can see this is a tube. It's a very different type of packaging. And if I was looking for car oil, I would not know that the far right product was a car oil. So you need to actually walk store shelves and have experienced people advising you, like graphic designers or packaging design companies, to be able to get the gist and do it the right way. So your homework is to walk US stores in your category, take pictures, evaluate the competition. What trends do you see that are common, and in what ways do you need to stand out? Ways that you can comfortably stand out has to do with colors, branding, packaging, artwork. But the nuances of this can be difficult for someone who's not from a certain country. So you're going to want to hire a design company or a consultant who could help you to make sure that what you're doing is going to be relatable to building trust in the US market. So the third way, and I'm sorry we're rushing through, but we only have 30 minutes and I want to get you a lot of information. The third way that you want to develop success is through your packaging artwork. And the key is you want to grab attention. So that's your first most important piece. And then number two, you want to communicate to your customer in a visual language that they can understand. So all of us understand the concept of speaking a different language. Packaging not only needs to have different language written on there, but also there's visual cues that we find relatable in America that may not be attractive to a different culture. So one of the things you want to keep in mind is that the human brain, no matter what country you're from, is the same. We all process information in the same format. First, we see size, so relative size. Then we recognize colors. So that could be contrasting or similar colors. Number three, we recognize shapes. Number four, symbols. And number five, words. So what does that tell you as you design your packaging? It means you need to first focus on the size of the designs that you're using, the colors, then shapes, then symbols, and then words for designing effective packaging artwork. And the way that we do that, obviously with packaging, you have your limitations of how large your package is. So you can't control much of that, but you can control the size of shapes on your packaging. You can control color. So color, we have a great article I wrote on ECRM's blog on color blocking. There's 2 articles up there written by Emily Page, that's me, with Joe Tarnowski on the ECRM's blog. So go read more about this, but you can use contrasting colors to really grab attention in the US market. In the US, we like big, bold, and loud. So bright colors I highly recommend, and you want to strategically pick ones that are complementary to grab attention. Here's a case study of Target Simply Balanced brand. Again, this is a private label brand, but you can see that they use consistency of color across all the products on their line. So these are all the same brand right here that have this teal color, and they're using these colors across categories. So that way the customer starts to recognize, this is a Target brand, Simply Balanced. They consistently have the same values. I recognize them. And the way that they stand out, so that's how they are similar with color. They stand out with these different colors inside, the interior colors that help you to understand that each thing is a different flavor in that category. Other examples, this is Safeway Lucerne's Dairy. They have different colors assigned to different fat grades of milk. So there's whole milk in red, 2% milk in green, 1% in yellow. And you can see that what's consistent across the brand is the design, the layout of the brand. So this helps to educate a consumer so that they're like, oh my gosh, I know this is a Lucerne dairy product. I know whether or not the full fat is going to be in whipped cream and in milk is going to both be red. Number 4, I want to talk about structural packaging. So that's the 4th way that you can build your retail success. So there's lots of different materials that you can sell your products in. And obviously the kind that you can use is sort of determined by your intended use. So if it's a beverage, if it's going in the freezer, if it's going to be shelf stable, you need to think about these things on the first get-go when you're developing your product. And if you ever want more advice about what type of packaging you can have, obviously you should reach out to my company, Pearl Resourcing. But a lot of things that are forgotten as we are developing products into a new market is that you can actually change the size or shape and intended use of your packaging, and oftentimes enter a new market, be sold in a different place or location in the grocery store planogram. And I'm going to give you an example here of some peanut butter. So what if you put peanut butter in a long stick, in a small stick, so that people could eat it on the go? What if they could have little squares of peanut butter and chocolate in a bag so it's bite-sized? What if they end up having a tear-off bag so they can squeeze it into their mouth on the go, or put it on a sandwich very quickly? Or what if they have them in traditional jars that are stackable? You could have them in different sizes depending upon what the customer's needs are. So you could sell the same product in lots of different locations in a store to lots of different customers depending upon their need, just by making a small change to the structural packaging. And the way that you attack this problem is, first you need to talk to your contract manufacturer, or if you are the factory, you need to talk to your packaging team, because you need certain machinery oftentimes to engage in different packaging, and it can change your throughput and your fill rate. So of course you need to have this strategy in mind. But I want to give you an example of a wild success story of this. This is Justin's peanut butter. In the United States, peanut butter was very an old school, traditional, always sold in these types of jars right here. And Justin's was trying to become a more popular, powerful brand that would be, known all over the entire United States. And the change that they made is that they took peanut butter out of jars and put them into these little tiny single-use pouches. If you've ever eaten American peanut butter, you'll know that when you stick it on a knife, it's very sticky. And so if you are trying to take a little bit of peanut butter with you as a snack, it's really difficult. It gets the bag all dirty, or it's just a lot of work. And so whoever owns Justin's thought of the idea of putting them in smaller pouches so that people could take them to go. And that caused them to skyrocket, because retailers started selling this at the front checkout. You can see here, this is the checkout of Whole Foods where I took this picture. They sold at the front of Starbucks. They sell these little pouches. Moms could put them in lunches. Athletes could take them to their workouts. This brand took off just by changing the structural packaging. And as you enter the US market, you're going to want to think about, how will people in America start using our products? And if you think of a different way, you might be able to gain some new market share. This is another great example of different structural packaging from Archer Farms Target. So this is, again, a private label brand. So you would see this in any Target all over the world, but this is their nuts and snacks collection. You can see here that this is a large bag. Here is a large bag with small individual grab and go pouches inside of the exact same product. And here is a family bulk size. So for the really large families that want to save money, they have a large rigid screw top pouch. And this is in the snack aisle. But this same brand also has products here at the checkout. They're individual tiny grab and go pouches of the exact same product. And they are also retailing it at the very end at an end cap, which is a very high. These two places in a grocery store have a lot of volume, a lot of foot traffic, because everyone sees the product, no matter if they're shopping for snacks or not. So by thinking of a different packaging, structure, you can actually convince retailers to put your product in multiple places in the same store, and therefore increase your sales velocity. You can think about lots of different materials. You could create a gift box, for example. You could do a shipper, which would go into the aisle and have your products in there. You could put them into corrugate boxes as bulk items. There's lots of different types of packaging that you could consider. So just keep that in mind. Even holiday packaging. In America, we're about to celebrate Christmas. And so a popular product would oftentimes have special little rigid gift boxes that would make it a giftable item. So think about these as resources to help you to sell more product. The fifth thing I want to tell you is that you need to plan for merchandising. So your brand needs to make sense on the shelf. And it might sound funny, but most designers are designing on a computer screen like this one here, meaning they are not literally walking the store shelf, and they don't know what that brand will look like when it gets there. Will those colors work? Are they going to look too similar to other products that are on the shelf? So you want to consider what your competition in your category will look like, and how will you look in comparison to them. And then you want to consider the methods of display. Are you going to be on a store shelf sitting upright? Will you be hanging on a peg? Will you be in a point of purchase display shipper? These are the things that need to shift your packaging design so that you can be sure you're successful. And this is a great example here. This is the frozen aisle of Whole Foods. And I took some really fast photos, and you might think, Emily, these aren't really high quality pictures. I did it on purpose. When you look at this, this is what a consumer is going to see of your product. And let me ask you, which of these products actually stands out to you? There are a ton of them. In this environment, the lighting is bad. You know, the bags are kind of bulky and they don't take the right shape. So you can see that a lot of these products kind of fade into oblivion and don't stand out. But products with bold colors, simple designs really do work well in the frozen food aisle. So if you are considering selling your products, you need to go and test things in the real environment. So you need to pay, I would recommend paying for printed mock-ups and going into those stores to see things. Or at the, if you don't have the time or money or resources to do that, you can at least look for pictures in your category. Search on Google for, you know, Kroger frozen food aisle, Whole Foods frozen food aisle, and then transpose with Photoshop your products onto those store shelves to see what your products would look like before you pull the trigger and start mass producing lots of things. So this again is another example. You can see that these type of design elements using circles and special shapes really draw attention, as does color, way before you can ever read any of the words. So go test things out and do your own test and research. You also want to think about when you're talking to your retailers at ECRM, this retailer is constantly wondering to themselves, how can I sell more product? So when you go into your sales pitch, you need to be thinking about the value to them as the end user. How will your retail buyer sell more product? They don't want to sell your product. They want to sell, like, they don't want to be here just to help you. They need to help their customer. So you always want to communicate to your retail buyer where your product belongs, how you're going to help them sell, show them pictures of what it could look like on the retail shelf so that they have a lot of confidence. Hey, my product, your product will stand out well and my customers will like it. It will look attractive. And that is your objective whenever you're at an ECRM sales pitch, is to show the customer, which is really your retail buyer, how they can be successful. Show them where your product belongs in stores. Evangelize your brand so that you can increase your sales velocity. And my last piece of advice is to test and to get feedback. So it's totally understandable if you're in a different country. How in the world are you going to understand the full cultural nuances of an American market? You can't. There's not enough research or data that you can look up and get enough information. So the best thing you can do is to do some testing and then get feedback from actual Americans. So that could include hiring a consultant. Hey, I'm a consultant if you want to hire me, but there are a million out there. And ECRM can even recommend some people to you. Or hire an experienced graphic design team in the country that you want to sell, because they will know what things are trending and what is working. They can actually walk into a store if you're in India, and they can walk into a store for you in America and help you to figure out what's going to work. You can also do a panel in main target cities. We did that most recently with a UK company coming to the US, and we designed 3 different packaging designs for them, and then they paid for a panel to see which ones were most attractive to consumers in their target market. You can also do digital test splits where you can pay, there's companies you can pay to just show 2 pictures, and someone on the internet who's getting paid can give you survey feedback. You can go to ECRM. I've heard from Joe Tarnowski, who's a friend of mine at ECRM, that some retailers have actually gone to ECRM knowing that they wouldn't even launch their product for another year. They just wanted to show retailers their packaging, let them have samples, and ask for feedback. So if you hire a design company, they can design graphics, they can give you either printed, digital mock-ups, or you can pay to have printed mock-ups, and you can show them to the retailer and say, which one do you like the best? What would work well in your store? Get feedback, make changes, come back the second time and just nail it, knock it out of the park. Again, I believe bring presentations with a few options. That's another way, is that you can show a retailer before you do mass production what those concepts look like. Make sure they're printed and that they look real so that they can see you're ready to go to mass production. but that's a really smart way to save money and make sure that you're retail ready. And develop a few options. Have your design agency make 1, 2, 3 options that you can test and get feedback on before you pull the trigger. Don't be the only person making a decision about branding and packaging artwork, because your style, you're not in business to make something that you think looks cool. You're in business to make something that sells. So hire someone that you know you can trust to give you some great advice. So in summary, get clear on your big picture strategy. Number 2, be intentional with your own branding. 3, develop relevant packaging artwork. 4, find some unique structural packaging that can help you sell more product. Number 5, plan for merchandising. And number 6, test and get feedback. These are all of the packaging and branding elements that I recommend that you do in order to create US retail market success. I just also want to close by reminding you, hey, sales is actually simple. You just need to have a plan. Number 1, you need to follow the science of sales, which is the law of large numbers. Get in front of as many people as possible, and you will sell product. If you meet 100 people and you sell 5 things per 100 people, then you just need to sell to 1,000 people to get 50 people who are customers. So don't be discouraged, be encouraged, get in front of more people. ECRM is a great way to do that. Number 2, improve your conversion rates by being better at pitching your product. That's the art of sales. And so that means if you see 100 people, instead of closing 10, you might close 50 people or 60 people. You will get a better conversion rate by being a better salesperson. And how do you do that? You need to have better branding, packaging, artwork, and really target it towards your audience. Having said all that, thank you guys so much for joining me. I'm again, Emily Page. I would love to invite you all to join me on LinkedIn and add me. I'm happy to be a friend. We don't have to work together for us to become friends. If you want to hire me to be a consultant, you can go to my website, emilyannpage.com. I also write a lot of articles for ECRM, so I highly recommend checking out the blog articles. If you're interested in packaging artwork, there's pearlresourcing.net. That's my branding and packaging design company. And lastly, I've got a lot of free cool articles on my website at emilyannpage.com and on YouTube. So that's called Start to Sold. You can read those free pieces of advice about branding, packaging. And I wish all of you a lot of success. And it's a privilege to be here with ECRM. I think ECRM does a great job introducing you to meaningful relationships. So I wish you all the best of luck and wild sales success in 2021.